You know, for too long, we've acted passively in the defense of these remarkable resources that have helped to create prosperity for all Canadians, including British Columbians. So let me be clear. If the NDP government in British Columbia were to use dilatory measures to stop the construction of the expanded and approved Kinder Morgan pipeline, if they, and in so doing, violate the rule of law and the Economic Union of Canada, one of the founding principles of our country. If they were to do these things, I've made it clear there will be consequences. I was on the front page of the Globe and Mail 3 weeks ago. If BC blocks the pipeline, there will be consequences, says Kenney. And I believe there's a range of consequences, but they go all the way up to and should include doing what Peter Lougheed did in turning off the taps of oil and gas to central Canada in 1982 to protest the national energy policy. If BC wants to move their gas through Alberta to the United States markets from northeast BC, then and they won't let us sell our oil in British Columbia or around the world, then perhaps we should be tolling that gas. And listen, the mayor of Vancouver says he wants a carbon-free Vancouver by 2040. I'm prepared to give him a carbon-free Vancouver by 2020 if they stop that pipeline. And maybe one morning, if people in Vancouver wake up and they see $5 a litre to buy their oil, they'll realize that their cars and trucks and economy are not fueled by pixie dust, but by Alberta oil. It's time that we said there are consequences. And if the federal government doesn't rein in the National Energy Board, which has killed Energy East, then we must have a referendum to renegotiate the terms of equalization so that our province finally gets a fair deal. Folks, the Energy East pipeline was killed, a $16 billion investment that would have created thousands of jobs, tens of billions of dollars of wealth for our country, that would have realized the dream of energy independence. It was killed partly by opposition from politicians who benefit from billions of dollars of equalization that is generated in part by that energy industry, including politicians in Quebec who are now using some of those equalization dollars to subsidize the construction of a cement factory that will generate 2 million carbon tons of CO2 emissions, more than most of our oil sands developments. And guess who owns that cement factory? Laurent Beaudoin, the chairman of Bombardier, that produces airplanes that we are forced to subsidize. Those airplanes, unlike the pipeline, actually burn fuel and produce carbon emissions. This is completely perverse. We are generous, but we're not suckers. We are willing to help other parts of the country when times are good or here, but they're bad elsewhere. But it's time that we use the tool that the Supreme Court of Canada gave us in the 1998 secession reference to hold a referendum, to force the federal government to the table on a constitutional issue, to renegotiate the equalization formula. First of all, to stop the automatic increases in the payments. Secondly, to remove non-renewable resource revenues from the definition of fiscal capacity. That is the sort of thing I believe Peter Lougheed would have done if he had had that power in 1982. We have had a provincial government here that for too long has acted like a lapdog for Ottawa instead of a watchdog for Alberta. One of the critical things you must decide on October 28th is who amongst us has the greatest ability to stand up with conviction and skill in both official languages in every part of this country to defend Alberta and its economic interests. I am prepared to do that. I think I've been preparing for that most of my life, and it's time that we stood up and defended this province, because in so doing, we defend the best interests of Canada.